Ladies and gentlemen, good evening to all of you. Once again, you are welcome here on the Event de Consciences platform. In significant international news, NATO must be fully prepared to wage a relentless and sustained conflict simultaneously on two distinct and challenging fronts, the Chinese front and the Russian front. This is a significant announcement that was officially made by the esteemed commander of the United States Armed Forces Command in Europe, which is widely known and commonly abbreviated as EUCOM. This command is a vital component of the US military presence in the European theater, responsible for a broad range of operations and strategic coordination across the continent. He is the commander of the United States Forces Command in Europe. That is to say, all American forces on European soil are under this commander's authority. Yes, and he's the one who says that NATO must be ready to face two fronts simultaneously. One front against China, one front against Russia. And this, contrary to the survey that had been conducted and predicted the year 2029 or 2030 as the crucial period for the start of the conflict, this time the commander announces that it should be for 2027. That means things are really speeding up quite a bit. Ladies and gentlemen, in this video conference, it is of course this current event that we are going to discuss. But before we continue, I humbly ask you to share the video conference as much as possible in all available groups. Give it lots of likes. And don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts. So let's dive deeper. So this is a scenario that the gentleman is describing. A scenario on which the NATO member countries, the various commands, and the different commanders are currently working. In short, NATO is getting ready, but NATO still has time to prepare. So, NATO is facing a scenario of multifaceted conflict. And so, a significant and impactful statement was formally delivered by this distinguished general, General Greenwich. His full name was Greenwich Alexis G., a prominent figure. He made this important statement during the esteemed Landro Symposium, a notable gathering which took place in the historic city of Wiesbaden, Germany. He made this statement on the 17th of July, 2025. This general, Greenwich Alexis, is the new commander of the United States Forces Command in Europe, EUCOM. So he has just recently arrived, but he is more determined than ever. One might even wonder if it wasn't precisely because of his ability to speed things up that he was brought in to replace the previous commander. Because as soon as he arrived, while the previous commanders were talking about 2029, in any case, the former one, along with the Europeans, they always mention the 2029-2030 window as the start of hostilities, particularly between Russia and NATO. But this time, he is adding China into the equation and moving the date closer to 2027. So, and what should we say about this? It's not just this one. He's not just anybody, the man who made the statement. He's not simply the commander of EUCOM, the United States Armed Forces in Europe. He is also the Supreme Allied Commander Europe, SACEUR. He is the Supreme Allied Commander Europe. So, beyond the fact that he leads the American team, all the Allied forces, she is the Supreme Commander. So then, and he took office at the beginning of July. So very recently, these remarks made in front of military and defense industry leaders highlight the urgency of increasing weapons production within the alliance. He was very clear with them. And so, the implication is that NATO must prepare itself. Production needs to be maximized. But you already know that NATO doesn't have any weapons. You know that we have just recently seen the issue that Germany faced. Germany, which is asking America to transfer the Patriot system, they will pay for it. America says no, They don't have many themselves. An order needs to be placed to start production, and production will take months. So NATO doesn't have any armaments. They've sent almost everything to Ukraine. And I think this is one of the rare wars that has truly, genuinely stripped NATO bare. So let's go a little deeper, ladies and gentlemen. What needs to be said is that he already takes into account the threats from Russia. He considers Russia a threat. He considers China a threat. So according to him, China and Russia are interconnected threats. He says these are interconnected rather than separate threats. He also emphasized the importance of allies honoring their commitment to increase defense spending to 5%, because we need to be prepared. 5% of GDP. He says that spending needs to increase, that allies must honor their commitment to raise military defense spending to 5% and direct those funds toward the right military priorities. Yes, it's not just about paying, but about directing it toward the right military priorities. So the threat on two fronts is anticipated in the 2027 outlook, looking ahead to 2027. So the concept of a conflict, according to the information we're receiving, is the idea of a conflict in Ukraine and in the Pacific. Since in the Pacific we have Taiwan, we have China. So the concept of a simultaneous conflict in Europe and the Pacific is being discussed more and more in defense planning circles. In most defense planning circles, they talk about the concept of a simultaneous conflict. The year 2027 is quite often mentioned by American officials, not specifically as a definitive deadline for an invasion, but rather as a potential significant milestone by which the People's Liberation Army, obviously the Chinese People's Liberation Army, could indeed reach a very substantial operational capability for major military operations, particularly regarding the island of Taiwan. Reports indicate that President Xi Jinping is said to have ordered his army to be ready to take back Taiwan by force by 2027. This date also coincides with the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Chinese Liberation Army, which adds symbolic significance. It means on the 100th anniversary of the Chinese Army's existence, they must take Taiwan by force. So all of this is cause for concern. And so if he has to take action in the year 2027, Russia may also, by that same year of 2027, have taken back all of Ukraine. They will therefore be facing these two fronts. And that's why they are insisting on rearming themselves. We need to rearm. We need to be ready before 2027. Ladies and gentlemen, I won't take up too much of your time. Here is today's top news. So please share it as much as possible. I'll be back with more news for you shortly. This was the voice of your one and only samurai.